And yeah, 23rd of November, Natasha Don, state budget debate, what opposition parties are pushing for. Everyone looking very serious as they jump onto their campaign buses, metaphorically or actually. Is that a thing here, Antonio F? Are there campaign buses that will be going around Portugal? I can't remember what happened last time. I wasn't that interested, or as interested as I am now in these matters. How's it going to be next year, as in the run up to March the 10th? What will campaigning look like? And will there be opportunities to eat and drink? Of course there will. Rectifying budget could be presented after March elections. In many ways, the settling of Portugal's state budget for 24 is academic. In bunny ears there. Elections in March will see a new government taking office, and it is widely believed that a rectifying budget could then be presented depending on which party or coalition of parties wins through. If the PS Socialists manage to convince the electorate that they should be voted back, the likelihood of budgetary chances will be slim. But any other combination of political power is almost certain to see alterations and altercations, I suspect, pushed through. Thus, here is a roundup of what the various parties would offer. So we're looking at what the PS did. This is a bit of an education in the various parties as well, and how many MPs they've got. We're looking at PSD Chega, Iniciativa Liberal, PCP Communists, and Bloco de Esquerda, and PAN, as well as Livre. Is that liberal or libertarian? I'm not quite sure. Somebody might be able to help me with that. And of course, it depends on how you define those words, because they do tend to get changed and perverted in politics, doesn't everything? What else did I want to say about that? It was something from last night, talking to Nuno, to Daniel, and to Gilda on the Dream Team session about Portuguese politics. It will come back to me. Okay. There was something. Yeah, Joel will be happy, of course, because he was very concerned when we did that special one evening, and Joel was talking about the 400% increase for some people in the circulation tax on old vehicles. There was an uproar about that because that was put forward as an ecological measure to heavily tax old cars on their circulation tax, on their road tax, which was, of course, just a tax on the poor, because poorer people are going to have older cars, are they not? And it looks like that might get a bonk on the head, that particular policy. Let's have a look. Let's see what other parties are thinking about that. So the PSD, the largest party in opposition with 77 MPs, the PSD Social Democrats are proposing a reduction in personal income tax up to the 8th scale, i.e. beyond current PS proposal, a maximum of 15% for young people's personal income tax, full restoration of teachers' service time, something the PS Socialists have doggedly refused to do, phased in over 5 years, and the elimination of the extraordinary contribution for alojamento local, the short-term holiday lets. Interesting then. And PSD probably the most likely to be able to lobby with their 77 MPs for such changes. Among other proposals, the PSD wants the government to set up a working group within 30 days to assess non-habitual resident regime. Of course they do. Create a tax incentive mechanism for savings up to 100,000 euros. Reduce IRC business tax to 19%. Very good. And bring in tax exemptions for productivity bonuses. Sounds good to me, PSD. Chega, then, the country's third political force, 12 MPs. Chega wants an IMI rates exemption for own permanent properties under a value of 350,000 and an increase in the minimum wage to 900 euros. The party is also pushing for a reduction in IVA, the value-added tax, charged on petrol and diesel to 13%, so down from 23 to 13 on petrol and diesel. For banks to pay a 40% tax on profits, with the proceeds channeled by the state into reducing families' mortgage payments. Well, those seem reasonable requests, do they not? And good for Portuguese society and people. Iniciativa Liberal, 8 MPs. And of course, all of these will look good, won't they? Because they're from opposition parties who are taking this opportunity to introduce their manifesto items and give the government a bit of a kicking. They'll all sound good, won't they? No one's going to suggest something awful at this stage and in this context. Iniciativa Liberal, the IL, wants to create a new lighter system of income tax, with 0% payable for up to 7,400 euros of taxable income, a rate of 15% in the second bracket, taking taxable income up to 32,450, and thereafter a third bracket. Well, IL, if you make it this complicated, it's not likely to stick with people and in their minds. Why not just call it an income tax slashing? IL also wants to see an end to the NHR Regresar and young IRS programs, as well as the return of the revenue from the privatization of TAP to the country's taxpayers. I'm sure that's a popular policy from IL, the Liberals. PCP communists then, 6 of those MPs in the parliament. The country's communists are focused on changes for public transport, creches and rents. In the first, they are seeking to reduce the cost of the social pass to 20 euros and making public transport free for all young people up to the age of 23 and the over 65s. That's quite communistic. When I lived in the Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire, it was all about cheap or free travel. They are remembered for it. And the party also wants medicines to be free for the over 65s and for the chronically ill, as well as advocating an end to tolls on formerly SCUT highways, SCUT, which began being tolled during the Troika years. Among other measures, the PCP wants a 0.43% limit on rent rises and the creation of a public network of creches, free access for young people up to the age of 25 to all cultural facilities and activities organised by the government, and an increased investment in CP, the country's train network, Comboios Portugal, and Transtejo Sofrusa, which provides river transport between Lisbon and the South Bank. PCP communists are the party that have tabled the highest number of proposals to change the 2024 state budget. They're not missing out on an opportunity there. 3 more then. Bloco de Esquerda, that's the Doc's favourite party here, isn't it? 5 MPs. They want a 15% pay rise in the civil service by 24, let's hope that's related to productivity after the conversation we had with the Doc and Bobby on Wednesday, or 140 euros, whenever that percentage is lower than this absolute value, a limit on the updating of rents, and the renegotiation by banks of spreads and other conditions associated with variable interest rate mortgages, so that the DSTI, the pressure on households, does not exceed the maximum value of 50% of income. That's Bloco de Esquerda. Among other measures, the party wants to ensure there are no further closure rotations in the health service emergency departments, that workers in the SNS health service are entitled to risk the hardship status, free public transport for young people, students, and senior citizens. Okay, PAN, they're an interesting party, aren't they? For the animals. They've got 1 MP and they want to see an end to seizure of family homes by banks on non-payment of rents and mortgages, a reduction on EVA on animal feed and medical veterinary services, and a pilot project to study the possibility of granting a license to women who suffer from severe and disabling pain during their menstrual periods. The party also wants to ensure that hydrogen and lithium projects are suspended. Oh, yeah, on that matter, if you were interested in the petition that's been raised and they're looking for more signatures in the Alvázora area, I have had a correspondent in touch with me about that. So reach out to me directly if that affects you and you want some help on what to do about that in Alvázora with the mining that's going on over there. So PAN wants to ensure that hydrogen and lithium projects are suspended. Free travel for the under 23s. This is the Environment and Animal Party. They want under 23s free on public transport and the updating of tax brackets to take inflation into account, and a 1% reduction in IRS personal income tax for the 6th and 7th tax brackets. Finally then, and this has all come via SIC Noticias from Natasha Don, translation here and summary in the Portugal resident. Livre, 1 MP in the parliament, has proposed a programme for the state to contribute up to 30% of the market value of a property on down payments for the purchase of people's first home, in the form of an equity loan, as well as the creation of an emergency fund for people who have a salary but no roof over their heads, financed through a 15% surcharge on municipal property transfer tax, the IMT. I'm finding this interesting, although it's quite heavy duty and a lot of manifesto material and political pushing and shoving. It's quite good to see what the issues are and how these respective parties are trying to deal with them, I would say. So you've got that, their efforts, Livre's efforts to help with people purchasing their first home. They also are pushing for an extension of the 3C program, Home, Comfort and Climate. That would be Casa, Confort and Climate. the creation of a public hydrogen agency or company, and the extension of the national rail pass to urban, inter-regional and intercity trains with a maximum monthly value of €49. That should get people back on the train, shouldn't it? There are well over 1,900 proposals involved in the upcoming debate, then more generally, which will run for almost 40 hours before the final global vote next Wednesday. So they're processing that then very soon, and a final global vote in the Parliament on Wednesday, the 29th, next week, 29th of November. P.S. from Natasha. Great work here, Natasha. Thank you. Socialists have come up with their own counter proposals, the PS ruling party, which are bound to be approved as the party is in a majority, all of which seek or reverse or attenuate the most controversial measures of the government's final budget. Yeah, they are looking a little bit transparent and not in a good way. See-through in their cynicism of maneuvering political power by backtracking on some of the more unpopular elements of their proposals more recently. Thank you very much. What do you make of that, folks, in the chat here? We're waiting for Sarah Davey to join us at around 9:30. And yeah, she'll be joining us after. She'll be talking to us actually live from the Spartan FX offices this morning. If you've got any questions about currency, she's your gal.